So we'll start the session by paying homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Dear friends in Dhamma, so we are going to start the Sutta teaching session. So today I have selected a sutta from Bojjhanga Samyutta, particularly highlighting the importance of the Bojjhanga, and it can be seen that often Bojjhangas are compared with the hindrances, because the opposite of Bojjhanga are the hindrances. On the other hand, the counteracting spiritual qualities, some noble spiritual qualities towards the hindrances are the Bojjhangas. So you can't have Bojjhanga once the Nissaranas are available. So for the Bojjhangas to operate properly, one has to have a free mind which is fairly free from the hindrances. An interesting situation explained in this sutta, where a Brahmin called Sangarava, so he approached the Buddha and typical cordial talk has been done, and the typical greetings were exchanged, and then he made a comment. Master Gautama, what is the cause and reason why sometimes even those hymns that have been recited over a long period do not recur to the mind, let alone those that have not been recited? And the opposite, what is the cause and reason why sometimes those hymns that have not been recited over a long period recur to the mind, let alone those that have been recited? So the point he is highlighted, he seems to be a Brahmin, and as you all know, they have their own practices, they are reading their own texts, maybe came from generation to generation, some Brahmanism, and they are also having hymns. And so those hymns, so these people are reciting again and again so that they can remember them. So this is the old way of learning, that they recite again and again so that ultimately it will be properly registered in the memory. But the point he highlights is that some days are there, some occasions are there, that these hymns are easily remembered. Not only the long recited ones, that means repeated recited ones, even the ones that you studied less, even those can be remembered quickly. Quickly you become mindful about those hymns. But there are other occasions that you can't remember the hymns even that you repeated so many times, and you don't need to talk about the hymns that you less repeated. That means you can't remember them at all. The ones that say less repeated ones, of course, entirely forgotten. Even the long repeated one, many times repeated ones, also completely forgotten. So what is the reason? So we can see, in one sense, we can see a relation with the memory. So what is the reason for good memory and the less memory? Some interrupted memory, some weak memory. So in one sense we can say that is the question he is asking. What are the conducive factors for a good memory? But on the other hand, not alone the memory, but there may be a fair amount of connection with the clarity of the mind and the balance of the mind. So memory alone can't do this job. So in order to have a good memory, you need to properly store them first. Whatever you are trying to memorize, you need to properly store, and on another occasion you need to properly retrieve. So that's the point. So there are two occasions we can recognize in that sense with respect to the memory. The first occasion is where you are storing. That in the sense that assume that you are reading a book and you are paying your attention, and at that moment your mind has to have a fairly good clarity, and your mind shouldn't be agitated, and you have to pay a fair amount of attention to the content, and you have to have a fair amount of interest. Particularly if you are not interested about the content and you are anyway trying hard to memorize it, still there is very less probability for you to remember it, because there is no much interest. Your mind is not that interested about the content, so it may be simply superficially stored. Ultimately, after a while, it will be erased. But on the other hand, if you are fairly interested about the content, if you have so enthusiasm about the content, then automatically it will be stored without much effort even. So therefore, interest is another factor which is governing the storing process, memorizing process. And you have to be fairly mindful. You know what is going on, and you have to have the presence of mind, and then only the content is thoroughly, properly stored, memorized. Now that is the storing side. How about the retrieval side? So this is very much like that you are writing some information to a hard drive and then taking it out. On the other hand, the retrieval side, on that occasion also, that may be after a couple of days, maybe after a couple of weeks, after a couple of months, after a couple of years, at that occasion also you have to be mindful. If your mind is agitated, if your mind is fairly corrupted, or on the other hand maybe kind of congested, so then it's quite difficult for you to retrieve the old information. But if your mind is fairly clear and you have the presence of mind and the mind is not agitated, then you can easily retrieve it. So the information that Buddha provides here gives us the more evidence from the Dhamma point of view, and he is explaining how this is happening in a more detailed manner. So one occasion that he is talking about the sensual lust, that means kama raga pariyuttithena cetasa viharati. That means one's mind is fully engrossed with the kind of lustful thoughts. The mind is agitated with lust, completely overwhelmed by sensual lust. And at that occasion, one does not understand as it really is the escape from arisen sensual lust. So that's another side. So you know that the lust is there, but you don't have any capacity to be free from that lust. That means lust has overpowered the mind, overwhelmed the mind. Completely the mind become a slave to the lust. On that occasion, one neither knows nor sees as it really is one's own good, or the good of the others, or the good of both. And then even those hymns that have been recited over a long period do not recur to the mind, let alone those that have not been recited. Now the first cause that Buddha pointed out here is the mind which is completely overwhelmed by the lust. When such is there, you can't remember what you studied. You can't remember what you have recited. Even the ones that you have thoroughly recited, thoroughly tried to memorize, even that you can't remember. And now Buddha is giving a very beautiful simile here. A ball of water mixed with black, turmeric, blue dye or crimson dye. So different colors are there. So you know that different on those days they are using some natural dyes to color the water. And here Buddha mentioned, okay, one is adding those colors, so the water become completely colored. If a man with good sight were to examine his own facial reflection in it, he would neither know nor see it as it really is. So he can't see his reflection. He wants to see his reflection, but is unable to see it because the water is completely colored. The vision is blocked. Your reflection is blocked because the water is colored. So the sensual lust is something, some kind of a color, a kind of a dye, where the mind being colored, mind being conditioned. You can't see. Your mind is kind of blocked. And sometimes there are other suttas, Buddha talk about it, saying Actually, when Sariputta points it out, Rago ko also achakku korono, doso achakku korono, moho achakku korono. So your mind, your eyes, that means eyes in the sense the vision, being blocked, you're being blinded, you're being blindfolded. So this is the meaning when this is what happening when the lust is available in the mind, overwhelmed in the mind. And so there you can't remember what you have studied. And then the next occasion he points out about the Vyapada pariyuttithena cetasa. There may be another occasion where your mind is infected, influenced by the anger, mind obsessed by ill will, overwhelmed by ill will. So, Vyapada pariyuttithena uppannassacha vyapadassa nissaranang yathabhutan nappajanati. And again, you don't know how to overcome it. You know now you are quite angry, but you don't know how to abandon it, to overcome it. So, in that case, so you are continuously become a victim of the anger, ill will, and that occasion also Buddha mentioned you can't remember what you have studied. So there also you can't remember what you have studied, and not only the ones that you recently studied or less studied, but even the ones that you were thoroughly studied, even those you can't remember. So your mind being fairly blocked. And a simile given also quite interesting, a bowl of water being heated over a fire, bubbling and boiling. You know that when the water being thoroughly heated, so it starts bubbling, boiling. And at that occasion you can't see your face. So the simile says that one with good eyesight, so he wants to see his own facial reflection, but he can't see, and he instead might burn his face. So that's what happens if he peek into the water which is bubbling and boiling, and you can't see the face. Similarly, Buddha mentioned the mind which is completely infected, influenced by anger, ill will, is something like bubbling water, fairly heated up and fairly boiling. And similarly, so the hymns that you have studied repeatedly, you can't remember. The hymns that you studied less, that also definitely can't remember. So we can see not only the hymns, I mean it may be Dhamma factors, maybe some kind of Dhamma related facts, maybe some other studies, some other subject. So this is a kind of a general rule, general scenario that we can apply to any occasion where the mind is agitated with completely here the ill will. And then the other occasion, Buddha talks about the sloth and torpor. Here you can now understand he is again and again talking about different hindrances. Now we are moving towards the sloth and torpor. A mind obsessed by sloth and torpor, overwhelmed by sloth and torpor, and one does not understand as it really is the escape from arisen sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor, often you know that you don't have energy to do something, you don't have any eagerness, any kind of diligence, so you feel completely lethargic and inactive, quite passive, no energy. So the mind feels completely crowded, like blocked down. On such occasion also Buddha mentioned that you can't remember what you have studied. Probably you have studied very hard. On previous days you were able to remember them, but not now, because the mind is completely, has become fully lethargic. And here Buddha is giving a different simile, a bowl of water covered over with water plants and algae. Suppose that you are keeping some water for a long time and without much interaction, so it become very much like sedimented and fairly covered with water plants and algae, and now it may smell bad and a kind of a smelly, and you can't even go closer and you can understand, so you can't see your face over there. So the one who wants to look at his facial reflection, he is trying to recognize it, but he can't, because there is a kind of a smoke on top of the water and the surface being fairly covered. The surface is not vibrant, surface is not pure, and you can't see your face. The reflection is unable to recognize. And similarly, Buddha mentioned, so once the mind is once the mind is influenced by sloth and torpor, fully covered by sloth and torpor, overwhelmed by sloth and torpor, and you don't know how to overcome it, to escape from it, then again you are under the influence of sloth and torpor and you can't remember what you have studied. And the next scenario is about the restlessness and remorse. So your mind becomes restless. It's jumping from this to that, and there is no any concentration, there is no any calmness, no clarity, and mind has become restless, and you have some different kinds of regrets. You are regretting about what you have done and what you couldn't do, and you have certain regrets, where now we can see that the influence of restlessness and remorse, uddacha kukkucca, and when that is there, the same situation. You can't understand what you have studied, you can't remember what you have studied, and you are under the full influence of restlessness and remorse, and you don't know how to overcome it, then you can't remember what you have studied. Probably you can understand, even when we are going for an exam, for example, and if you become kind of restless, agitated, then we can't properly answer the question paper. Assume that you become quite nervous and restless, and then you are going to an interview. People are asking various questions. You can't remember what you have even done, and you can't present it properly. And that is because your mind becomes restless, agitated. So this kind of a situation. And the simile also is quite understandable. A ball of water stirred by the wind, rippling, swirling, churned into wavelets. You know that a surface of a reservoir may be a river. So once it is stirred by wind, it becomes quite turbulent. It becomes rippling, swirling, and there also you can't see the face. Even though you are trying, you can't see the face because it is turbulent. It has wavelets. It has kind of a swirling, and as a result of that, you can't see the face properly. So you can see the mind also like that. When the mind is agitated, when the mind is restless, so all memory is unable to retrieve. You might have studied a lot, but the mind is now blocked. Mind has become agitated, mind has become restless, and you have certain worries even. And then you can see it's unable to retrieve the information, unable to recognize, unable to remember what you have studied. Now the last one, the mind obsessed by doubt, overwhelmed by doubt, and one does not understand as it really is the escape from arisen doubt. Now, doubt is the last type of hindrance typically we are talking, and when the mind is filled with so many doubts and you don't know what exactly is the correct thing, your mind has some perplexity, and on such case, again you can't remember what you have studied. Probably you have some vague idea. You don't know for sure what is the correct answer, something like that. So previously you have remembered so much of information, you are able to memorize, but currently your mind is crowded. So many different kinds of views are there, different thoughts are there, and there is no much assurance about your answer. So you are in a kind of a perplexity, so you can't remember exactly what is necessary. So this is the occasion Buddha says it's very much like a ball of water that is turbid, unsettled, muddy, placed in the dark. Unsettled, muddy, and placed in the dark. Quite difficult. In one sense it is dark because the necessary light is not available. On the other hand, it is muddy, so that again it is not the pure water. And again it's unsettled. So that means there's a fair blockage has happened during the vichikicha, the doubt. So doubt is an area where you become completely helpless. You don't know the direction. You don't know which direction to take. What exactly is the answer. So many different views are there. So in a kind of a cluttered mind. In such case also you are unable to understand what is the correct answer or what you have remembered, what you have studied. None of them come to the mind. So you can't even figure out, when there are so many things coming out, which one is the correct answer, which one is the correct thing. So likewise we can apply this to, in general form, to our studies, to our, say, answering a kind of an exam paper, or maybe you are remembering what you have already studied. So any scenario we can understand. So the point is, so mind has to be in a way free from lust if you want to remember what you have studied. Now then the Buddha explains why the hymns recur to the mind easily. The opposite side. He is explaining how you are able to remember what you have studied easily. Not only that you have hard studied, what you have thoroughly studied, even the ones you just spend little time still can remember, because the mind is not obsessed by sensual lust, not overwhelmed by sensual lust, and you know how to overcome in case it arises. You are able to quickly abandon it. So mind does not get covered by the sensual lust. So that is very much like that there is a ball of water not mixed with any color. So the clarity of the water is available. The transparency of the water is available. It is not mixed with any color. You know that the color is transparent. So the water is transparent. There is no any particular color to the water. That's in that sense, that is one reason for a proper reflection. So when there is no color mixed to the water, you can easily look at the face. So here Buddha points out, this is a scenario where the water is fairly pure and there is no any color mixed. As a result of that, you can easily see your face. And similarly, when we consider our mind situation, it is not obsessed with any lust, any kind of a desire. So the mind is in a kind of a serene level, kind of an equanimous level, unagitated level. There is no any excitement came through the lust, any impatience came through the lust, but instead mind is quite settled and fairly pure. The next situation is where the not heated up, where the mind is not heated up with anger, ill will. That is also another situation where you are in a very cool mood. Your attitude is fairly calm. There is no any agitation came through ill will. You don't have any anger. So that is very much, the water is maintaining its typical room temperature in other sense. So you are not heating it. So you are allowing the water to maintain that its natural temperature, and you are not adding anything. And basically water is merely maintaining its typical temperature. There is no heat there. So easily you can now look at your reflection and there is no issue, and basically you can understand that easily you can recognize your facial, you can easily recognize the face. So that's the point highlighted at this level. And next occasion you can see the next scenario, that Sota and Torpor. So there is no Sota and Torpor. So you are in a fairly vigilant state, quite awakened, you have some rigor, and so mind is not blocked with Sota and Torpor. So you are in a fairly alerted state. So you are awake. So as a result of that, you can easily recognize what you remembered. So there may be some studies you did, so you can easily remember because the mind is in full alert. You are fully awake. You are not yawning, you are not drowsy, you are not sleepy, you are not lethargic, but you are fully awake. Now the simile given there is that it is not covered with water, plants and algae. So the water is not spoiled by water, plants and algae, and it is not kind of a stale water. So it's kind of a pure water. Clarity is there. There is no any surface membrane. So the water surface is quite pure. So easily one can see one's facial impression, and you can see the face easily. The next scenario again mentioned is where the restlessness and worries, restlessness and regret, where mind is not influenced by regrets. There is no any agitation, there is no any restlessness. Mind is quite settled. Mind is quite calm, very relaxed. So then you can easily remember what you have studied. You can recall what you have studied easily. Because mind is quite settled, quite calm, relaxed. And that is an advantage for you to remember what you have studied. And that is where Buddha mentioned there is no any turbulence in water. There is no any kind of a stirring or swirling. There are no any ripples or wavelets in the water. So the water is quite settled. It's maintaining its steadiness. And as a result of that, one can easily see one's reflection. So the mind is maintaining its steadiness. Mind has its clarity. Mind has its settled state. Where there are no any turbulence, no agitation. So as a result of that, one can easily see one's reflection. And the last one is the doubt, where there is no doubt. Mind is not obsessed by doubt. In case certain doubtful thoughts are coming, you know how to overcome that also. Easily you can return back to the kind of very steady state of mind. There is no doubt at all. And as a result of that, you know exactly what is the answer. You know exactly whatever you want to remember, you know exactly. And that is what very much like a ball of water that is clear, serene, limpid, set out in the light. Instead of darkness, now water is in the light. So necessary amount of light is available, and there is no any mud in the water. Instead, it's a very clear water, and basically as a result of that, because of the clarity, you can look at it properly. You can see the reflection. So basically, this is the opposite of the hindrances. So here Buddha points out, so this opposite of hindrances are the bojjhangas, the enlightenment factors. So after explaining about the hindrances, now Buddha explains about the bojjhanga, where it is giving a positive atmosphere to the mind. Now we already discussed what is going to happen when the lust is available, ill will is available, swatta and torpor available, worry and restlessness available, and the doubts is available. But when they are not available, that is very much like the mind is empowered with bojjhangas. So instead of regrets, restlessness, the mind is now empowered with mindfulness. So you are having the presence of mind. And again, instead of any lethargic lazy kind of a thing. Your mind is empowered with effort and the Dhamma Vichaya. So you are having the investigative quality. You are inquiring. So the mind has that quality of inquiring. So in order to retrieve the past information, what you have studied, you have to have that inquiring quality in the mind. It's not that you are thinking, rather you are having that inquiring quality. Very subtle inquiring is going on. Investigation is going on. So that represents the quality of the Dhamma Vichaya. And again you are upright, awake. So the effort is there. Viriya Sambojjhanga. Viriya Sambojjhanga is there so that you are awake. You are not in a kind of a drowsy state. On the other hand, you are not worrying and you are not regretting. Instead, you are happy in a joyful state. That means the Piti Sambojjhanga, Passadi Sambojjhanga, those are there. And instead of, restlessness, you are quite settled. Passadi is there. The tranquility is there. The mind has the tranquility that indicates the mind is quite settled, very calm, very relaxed. It's quite settled. And then the equanimity, so you are maintaining a well-balanced mind. It is not agitated, and again it is concentrated. So you know exactly, it is not restless, it is not jumping from this to that. Instead you are maintaining the concentration, calmness, and kind of evenness of the mind coming through the equanimity. So you can see this is the kind of balanced mind, a mind which is under the well-being, a kind of an equipoise, is represented through the bojjhangas, enlightenment factors. So when these enlightenment factors are there, definitely you can remember what you have studied. So the mind is in a kind of a clarity, quite calmness, relaxed and unagitated, and still you have the inquiring quality. But on the other hand, you can remember that sometimes I mention even the balancing of the bojjhangas. So that is explained in another sutta called Aggi Sutta, in the Bojjhanga Samyutta. Even in the enlightenment factors, Buddha mentioned there are two sides. There are a group of bojjhangas which actually can cause overexcitement, kind of a little overactiveness can happen through certain bojjhangas. So Buddha points out those are the Dhamma Vichaya, Viriya, Piti. So when investigation is there, the effort is there, the joy is there, if it is not properly balanced, it can little agitate the mind. Mind can become overexcited. But on the other hand, the other group is actually the calming down side. That is Passaddi Samadhi Upekka, the tranquility, concentration and equanimity. So that group actually calms down the mind, settles the mind, relaxes the mind, concentrates the mind. But if excess is there, that means if you are too much calm, too much relaxed, too much in concentration, then one can become lethargic, ultimately end up with sleepiness, drowsiness. So therefore, even when one is developing bojjhanga, so one has to know which side is up, which side is down. So therefore, even the bojjhanga level, Buddha say, okay, you need to inquire a little. So what's really going on? Which side is high and which side is low? So who is allowing us to get that information? Who is retrieving that balance of the mind? So that is the mindfulness. Sati. So the satiko ahang bhikkhave sabbattikam vadami. So therefore Buddha mentioned, okay, you have to have mindfulness every time, presence of mind every time, then only you can recognize which part is high, which part is low. So then as a result of that inquiring, okay, if mindfulness is retrieving you, okay, now the mind is little agitated. Okay, Buddha say, don't now cultivate Dhamma Vichaya Viriya Piti. Instead, allow the mind to calm down. So you stop a little bit of inquiring. Now you do the calming down. You do some relaxation. But on the other hand, at another occasion when you are inquiring, if you feel, okay, now the mind is too lethargic and is now moving towards the drowsiness, okay, don't cultivate samadhi, don't cultivate tranquility or equanimity. Instead, try to awake, arouse energy, try to do some investigation, purposeful investigation. Then again the mind become active. So likewise, so the maintaining the mind state in a very balanced, equanimous state is a kind of a challenge, because due to various reasons that we encounter throughout the day, mind can become agitated. Either it can become more active, more excited, or it can be lethargic, drowsy, and sleepy. That side. Even when a kind of significant hindrances are abandoned, even there Buddha mentioned, okay, you need to have a very subtle inquiring quality, subtle presence of the mind, where you know which side is high, which side is low. Agitation, the activating side is high, or the calming down side is high. Depending on the situation, you have to maintain the balance. You have to do the necessary adjustments. So once the mind is well adjusted, well maintained, then you can see, okay, both sides are there. So your mind is completely at present, and some inquiring quality is also there, and certain amount of joy is there, equanimity is there, and tranquility is there, the clarity of mind is there. So this is the state of mind where we can say you are in a Samma Samadhi, a well-balanced mind. The clarity is there. Whatever happens, you know exactly at that moment, at that instant, because the presence of mind is there. And again, the inquiring quality of the mind is there. You are not ignoring things, you know exactly what's going on. So likewise, we can see, so through the practice, once one arrives this kind of a well-balanced mind, then we can say, okay, you can recognize the defilements easily, because you know exactly the purity of the mind, you have experienced it, and again the mind is now in a well-balanced state. In case any kind of a hindrance happen, you can easily trace them, you can easily recognize them, and can abandon them. And that is one point I need to highlight. And on the other hand, we can see through the similes that Buddha points out here, the mind, the better mind, a balanced mind is very much like a pure water. It is not colored water, it is not heated water, it is not kind of a water which is sedimented or influenced with some algae. It is not a restless, muddy, turbulent water. It is also not kept under the darkness, and it has to be kept in the kind of light. And again, it is kind of not muddy. So it is pure water, completely pure water, and no ripples, quite stable and fairly clean, and then you can see the reflection. So this is the kind of a simile that we can always remember. I mean, this water simile is very, very powerful and quite understandable when we are comparing it with our own state of mind. So we can reflect, is our mind colored? Is our mind currently colored by something? Or is it agitated by any kind of heating? Are we going through some heating? Am I going through some heated up state? So, or else the mind is kind of crowded with any kind of algae, some water plants, so that your surface of the mind is somewhat having a membrane, so that you can't see the reality. Or else is it agitated, turbulent, rippling? Are there thoughts coming and going and quite rippling? Or you have some kind of a muddy and kind of blocked and perplexity. So these are the areas in a way, with compared to water, we can easily understand. So the state of the mind that Buddha recommend is the pure state of water, where the purity is there, clarity is there, stability is there, and not heated up, not colored, so that you can easily look at your reflection. Okay, with that note, I will conclude today's Sutta teaching session. And now I like to open the session for questions.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes. We have a question. Okay, we have a question from our side. One moment.
Okay.
Swamin Wanse, I think that with regard to the hindrances, once they appear, or once a yogi realizes that, for example, sense desire or ill will or sloth and torpor is present, the natural way of the mind is to feel that it is a person who is experiencing these things. And so sometimes a yogi might be very determined, but there is sloth and torpor. And when he realizes this, he kind of becomes discouraged, like, I really wanted to meditate. Why is this sleepiness coming? Or the yogi is accosted by sensual desires, memories. And so when they want to meditate, they feel like they want to concentrate, these sensual memories, they just come to him. And so they feel a bit agitated. However, with regard to Yavakala Sutta, where the Buddha says this conceit of I am, the conceit of I am, or I am this, or I was this, or I am going to become this, the yogi can never get out of this idea of a self. So I think that if a yogi is constantly and continuously reflecting that this conceiving of I am this, I am feeling this, I am perceiving this, if a yogi is in that constant reflection, then even these hindrances, they will not be able to overpower him. So for example, if the yogi is meditating and the sloth and torpor arises, the yogi does not automatically get swept by that natural way of the mind feeling that I am experiencing sloth and torpor. So they just know that there is just sloth and torpor, and so they don't fall under its bondage.
He's not identifying with it.
Yeah, they don't identify with it or sense desire. They don't consider, I am having sensual desire, and so they don't become bound to it. You think this is a good reflection of such a yogi?
Correct, definitely, yes. Yeah. Because that is where, say, Buddha encourages in the Nissarana pub, in the Dhammanupassana. So the hindrances are known as mere hindrances. So santang va ajjattang kamachandang attime ajjattang kamachandoti pajanati. When there is the presence of sensual desire, he merely knows there is sensual desire. He very much like looking at it objectively, not subjectively, not possessively. Instead, he is very much like step out of it and look at it as a phenomena, just another phenomena, kind of disengaged observation, a kind of distant observation, unidentified observation. So that is a real, another well-balanced state of mind where you kind of disengage from the sensual desire. Due to certain reason, sensual desire has arisen, but instead of you identifying with it and you feel kind of embarrassed with it, or you are accusing with it, so instead you simply recognize it as it is. Oh, this is just a sensual desire. You are not adding to it, and you are not accusing you, and you are not the owner of the sensual desire. You are simply experiencing it as an outsider, and that actually promotes the reduction of the sensual desire. Because the time that you identify with it, then you might feel again agitated and you might feel embarrassed, or you start self-accusation. All these things are there. Again, you are not in the correct direction. On the other hand, if you start fueling it, feeding it, then you become a victim, a prey of the sensual desire. So both sides are not the correct thing. Instead, as you pointed out, so how to disengage from it, how to look at it objectively. Okay, this is mere sensual desire, mere sensual desire. And probably then you can get some wisdom from it. How is it arising? How is it changing? How is it kind of fading away? So very much like looking at some outside phenomena. Now say for example, I typically mention the simile of a kind of a procession. You know, in Sri Lanka it's a very popular thing. Maybe during the Katina ceremonies, maybe any kind of another ceremony, that people are going on a procession. Okay, some elephants are there, some dancers are there, and maybe flower bicycles are there. So they decorate the bicycle with some flowers. And some people are dancing and some are playing with the sticks and drums and all these things, and someone is singing. All different varieties are there, and they are going through a procession. Okay, now people are watching it. Now say what happened, say when assume that there is a Canadian dancer now performing in front of you, and if it is really interesting, you also start dancing, because you being a victim of that dance, you being influenced by that dance, and you also start dancing along with him. And but how about you simply watch it, maintaining your stability? You simply watch how the dancing is going on. So kind of a distant watching without much influenced by the dance, but still you are watching it. You can still watch it, but there is no any agitation, no excitement as such, to the level that you're being driven by it, and you are also singing, you are also dancing. You know, even when you are listening to music, so typically we are tempted to maybe even to sing the same thing. Okay, at least we are using our say hand or our fingers, we do we get the rhythm of it, right, the melody of it. Yeah, so likewise, so that means we are being influenced by it. Our mind is colored by that whatever the external phenomena. But the moment we are able to look at it as it is, okay, this is just a dance, it's just a movie, this is just a dancer, this is just a singer, then very much like you are completely an outsider of the situation. This is where we can say getting close to ditte dittamatta. So things are there, certain visuals are there, but you are able to maintain to the level that is a mere visual, it's a mere sight. You are not introducing your own likes and dislikes into the picture. You are not introducing your own kind of judgments into the picture. You are able to simply watch it, simply look at it. Then they have their intrinsic characteristic to pass away, because they are conditioned phenomena. Whatever arisen, they will definitely pass away, and you don't need to worry about it. They are destined to pass away, because now they are present and they are destined to pass away, and you simply watch how they are passing away, So likewise, so the same thing explained for the Arahant. Chakkuna rupan diswa neva sumano hoti na dummono upekkako viharati sato sampajano. So Buddha mentioned when the Arahant is looking at some sight, neva sumano hoti, he is not happy. Na dummono, he is not unhappy. Upekkako viharati, he is equanimous, sato sampajano, mindfully and with the presence of the mind, with the inquiring nature of the mind. So that's the best we can do. That is what exactly Arahant is doing. So you can't simply close your eyes, you can see things, but you are not excited, you are not kind of say elated, you are not happy. On the other hand, you are not unhappy or sorrowful, and maintaining an equanimous mind, quite vigilant. So likewise, if you are able to look at the hindrances also in that angle, so hindrances become a source of wisdom, and you can learn from them. And of course, more we do like that, they start fading away, they become weaker and weaker, and mind may start experiencing the freedom from hindrances. So the mind is quite vigilant, quiet, there is no any restlessness, no agitation. So very much like equipped with the power of the enlightenment factors, because the enlightenment factors ultimately fairly lean towards the equanimity. You know that the mind, instead of too much joy, now the mind is more lean towards the equanimity. It doesn't mean that you become indifferent, rather the mind has the clarity, the balance, and more the equanimity. Okay. Anything from you? Right. Any question from your side?
Swaminatha, I don't have any, I can't see any hands have been raised, but if there are any questions, please raise your hands and please ask your questions. Until such, I want to just make this opportunity to ask a question, Swaminatha.
Yeah.
So today is about hindrances, and Buddha's teaching is about the comparison our mind to plain water, just the basic, the water, how, and their certain qualities, and how our minds, the boiling water is like how when we are sort of, our mind is agitated and anger, and my question is in certain type of conditions, and not necessarily a yogi per se, always, you know, we as laymen and try to sort of get into that process of getting into more meditative minds, but not, and also spend the time with the family and etc. And when we have that type of a condition in our mind, what is the best way for us to sort of recall and sort of say, okay, this is not the best for you to teach yourself? Would you be able to share some thoughts on that for us?
Teach yourself. Yeah, teach yourself in the sense, I mean, assume that you are with your family members, your children, and so at that moment, what's the state of mind you need to maintain? Is that your question?
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think on one sense that we need to know something about the Brahma Viharas. Metta, Mudita, Karuna, Upekha. So that is the other side of the ball, where we need to have certain amount of loving kindness in ourselves, some compassion in ourselves, and look at the other's success and be happy about it. And on the other hand, the equanimity. So when dealing with the others, so those are the factors that Buddha often emphasize, and you can refer even in the Sedaka Sutta. By thinking of the others, Buddha is inviting us to develop Satipatthana. Parang rakkhisamiti Satipattanang sevitabba. In terms of thinking that I am going to protect the others, okay, you be mindful, develop the Satipatthana. And there, the emphasis is onto the loving kindness, the khanti, the patience, and so equanimity. So those are the kind of qualities that Buddha emphasizes in the Sedaka Sutta. So when you are dealing with the others, so where you can't always maintain the same kind of say very sharp mindfulness, very sharp concentration, very sharp wisdom, but you know, now I am with the others, okay. Buddha mentioned avihinsaya, khantiya, metta chittataya, anuddayataya. Khantiya, so you have to be patient. So patient has to be there. Avihinsaya, and you know, I am not going to kind of make any complaint. I am not going to harm them. I am not going to hurt them. Then metta chittataya, some metta quality is there, some loving kindness is there. Then anuddayataya, that means again you are spending little time for others. No any agitation, there is no any hatred. So likewise, it depends on the opportunity that we have. We all have certain responsibilities, and on that occasion, rather than we are spending our time impatiently with some agitated mind and blaming others in the mind, rather we spend quietly, okay, I accept it, okay, this is also something I have to do, I have some patience to go through it, and have the loving kindness.
Very good, thank you, Bhante. I think these will definitely help as well in our samsaric journey. I don't see anybody here raise their hands.
Okay.
I don't think that we have any questions from our side.
Okay, thanks. Then I'll invite Venerable Dhammosada to conduct the sharing of merits, and before that actually I have a certain announcement. Since I am going abroad tomorrow, so this session has to be could be able to live broadcast for several weeks, but instead, if possible, I invite Mr. Geshan and Jennifer to broadcast a recording, because we have fair amount of collected recordings now. So instead of completely cutting off the session, I feel we can repeat a recording, and so that whoever interested, they can participate, they can listen to it. But anyway, I am not coming live, but you can listen to the recording. That also may be quite useful, because we have covered fair amount of interesting suttas which are more contributing towards our practice. We can get a lot of guidance from those suttas, and that is something I invite Jennifer and Mr. Geshan, and probably maybe after some time I'll inform you once the facilities are available to restart the session.
Thank you very much, Bhante.
Yes.
And safe travel for you as well.
Yeah, okay. So I invite Venerable Dhammosada to conduct the sharing of merits.
Asai Bhante, for all the merits we may have accrued today from listening and discussing the Dhamma, we would like to share these merits with our parents, our relatives, all celestial beings. May all celestial beings protect this Dhamma and the Buddha's dispensation for a long time, and may the seeds of Dhamma that we have received grow, producing path, fruition, and Nibbana. I invite everyone to join in the recitation of the traditional Pali verses for the sharing of merits. Ittavata chamhehi sambatam punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu samba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata chamhehi sambatam punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata chamhehi sambatam punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakhantu sasanang. Akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanang. Akasatta ca bummatta devanaga mahiddika punyang tang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mamparang. Idango nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idango nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idango nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo Satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.